Okay guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm sitting here looking at some stuff, just doing a little bit of research because I'm actually actively looking for a job right now. I mean, it's like 4:30 in the morning. Got home from work a little while ago, and like I told you guys, I'm seriously looking for another job, and I'm finding things that are pretty good that might suit me well. And I'm sitting here, I'm filling out this one application. But if you guys know like this 10 Street application stuff and the way it works, like it's a lot of it's autofill. You fill it out one time and that's it, and you can usually just submit the same application over and over because it autofills it for you, right? Well, I haven't used this thing in a while, not since I was looking for my job last year. And this one question right here has really got me stumped. Let me read it to you. Question 5. In the past 3 years, have you ever been convicted of any of the following offenses committed during on-duty time? Committed during on-duty time. Now, I need to find my FMCSR book, and I need to look up these sections because I need more information to know exactly how this plays out. Because if you want to get technical, nothing that I was held accountable for had anything to do with on-duty time. Now, I can't technically prove that it didn't, but in all actuality, it didn't. And that's what I've told you. I've told you guys the truth about it this entire time, okay? Let me move on. Now, it gives you these convictions because it says, have you ever been convicted? Now, if you look up the word conviction or convicted, this is what you're going to find. Having been declared guilty of a criminal offense by the verdict of a jury or the decision of a judge. So who's that judge? Who's the judge? Right here under the Cambridge Dictionary, it says having officially been found guilty of a crime in a court of law, being a convicted felon, a convicted murderer. Now, guys, doesn't take rocket science to kind of start putting 2 and 2 together here. Maybe you see where I'm coming from, okay? Now, here's what it's saying, or here's what it's asking if I've ever been convicted of. Driving a commercial motor vehicle with a blood alcohol concentration of greater than 0.04%. Driving under the influence of alcohol. Refusal to undergo drug and alcohol testing as required by any jurisdiction for the enforcement of federal motor carrier safety. Okay, so if there's anything that I'm convicted of, it's going to be this one right here. That's it. So this one thing right here is what's affected me for the past, it's been almost 2 years now. I mean, a few more months, it'll be 2 years. That's it. Now, I wasn't found guilty of a crime. I didn't commit a crime. I didn't. I broke a rule, but I didn't commit a crime, and I wasn't found guilty by a jury or a judge, and I wasn't sentenced. I mean, I guess I was sentenced in a way. I had to do the SAP program. But I'm not going to read the rest of that stuff, although maybe I should, because, you know, this one particular one right here, transportation, possession, or unlawful use of a 21 CFR 1308.11 Schedule 1 identified controlled substance, amphetamines, narcotic drugs, formulations of an amphetamine, or derivatives. That word, keep that in mind, derivatives of narcotic drugs while you were on duty driving for a motor carrier. Now, guys, here's going back to everything that I was screaming in previous videos. I have never operated a tractor trailer, a commercial motor vehicle, under the influence of anything except maybe Tylenol. Okay? So, yeah, I refuse to submit a drug test because their drug testing method isn't sensitive enough to determine if I have been driving under the influence of what I took. It's not sensitive enough for that. It's actually outdated, and it's actually unable to determine. You know, if they actually used a modern method, a more advanced method to detect how long it had been since I used what I used, and I'm not even at that point yet. I'm about to show you a whole bunch of other shit that's going to blow your mind, okay? Because I've got something else about this that just doesn't add up, doesn't make sense. Unless, and this is exactly what they would do, but they would say, you see that word right there, Jared? Derivative. Derivative. Okay, let's look up derivative. That one doesn't really, I mean, I guess if you took the personal aspect out of it, it says typically of an artist or a work of art. Imitative of the work of another person, and usually disapproved of for that reason. Okay, so you can kind of take that definition and see, well, okay, the shit that I took was a derivative. It wasn't the actual Schedule 1 narcotic. It was a derivative of that. If you look it up right, or you look at the second definition right here, it says something that is based on another source. When I saw that, I looked up and I actually Googled the question, is Delta 8 THC a derivative of weed? Okay, because that's actually what I took. That's what I took, and because I was so questionable about it, and guys, keep in mind, when I took the shit, I was not on duty, I was not in a truck, I was not near a truck. I was actually, like I said, I was never any closer to a truck than 36 hours away from getting into it. Actually, more than a 34-hour reset from getting back into the truck after I took the shit. Okay, so keep that in mind. Not only did I legally purchase it and pay sales tax, retail tax for it, which went to the government anyway. Not only did I do that, I took it when I was off duty. So their little rule here, this is what I'm trying to show you guys. I'm going to show you the last belt loop of it. This is their last little loophole that they've got. This is what's so binding about it. And this is how they'll get you. So the question I asked is Delta 8 a derivative of weed? And it says yes. While naturally occurring in cannabis, it's often derived from hemp. Wait a minute. Derived. Cannabidiol. Rather than directly from marijuana, making it a derivative of the cannabis plant, but not the marijuana itself. Right? That's what that's saying, right? It's derived from hemp derived. So the let's look up this. Cannabidiol. CBD. Oh, okay. Say, didn't I tell you guys that's what it said on the package? CBD, right? CBD is a chemical compound found in the cannabis sativa plant, commonly known as hemp or marijuana. Wait. Well, that doesn't make much sense. So I'm going to say is cannabidiol CBD or marijuana? Because this is saying it's both. Okay, CBD or cannabidiol is a compound found in cannabis plants, including hemp and marijuana, but is not the same as marijuana itself. Does that mean it's a derivative? So what's the difference? Because this is saying marijuana itself is a type of cannabis plant containing high levels of THC. Okay, so does that mean that hemp, or the type of plant that they actually use? Because I remember kind of doing a little bit of studying on this back in the day before I became, like I told you guys, I smoked when I was a teenager, right? So I just remember people saying that, like, it's all marijuana technically, but there's a difference. Like, the male plant is hemp and the female plant is the actual bud, right? That's the Mary Jane, right? And it's the female plant, so that's why it's got that name, right? I don't know. So let me ask this question: is THC in hemp? Okay. Yes. Hemp contains small amounts of THC. Okay. Let me ask this question: is hemp a federal is hemp federally legal? The Agricultural Improvement Act of 2018 authorized the production of hemp and removed hemp and hemp seeds from the DEA, Schedule of Controlled Substances. So is that when all this shit started happening? Is that when truck drivers started failing drug tests, when they started making consumable products out of hemp? Well, let's go back to the whole Delta 8 thing. And I asked, is Delta 8 a derivative of weed? Because now we know the difference, right? Now we know that, okay, this is the technicality, because apparently straight up marijuana from the female plant is not legal. And it's probably not, it's only sold in certain states, like Colorado, California, and then other states that have like dispensaries, I guess that's where they sell the actual weed. Well, they don't have that in my state. I couldn't ever technically buy that unless I went out of state to get it, and I never took that shit. Okay? But it says right here, concentrated amounts of delta THC are typically manufactured from hemp-derived cannabidiol. So this is telling us that this delta 8 THC is from cannabidiol, which I guess is like the oil that comes from the male marijuana plant, or the hemp plant, right? That's what that's saying, right? Does anybody agree with me? Now, leave a thumbs up if you understand what that's saying. I think that's what that's saying. I think I understand what that's saying. So does that mean that this Delta 8 product, because it's derived, there's that word, derivative, derived, it's actually coming from the plant that was deregulated by the DEA, right? Because I just showed it to you, where it said in 2018 that Agricultural Act removed hemp from that class, that scheduled class of narcotics. It's not a narcotic anymore. Now, it was the federal government that did that. The DEA that removed that plant, okay? So what you do, what you've got is you got chemists saying, okay, now we can get our hands on it and we can start experimenting with it, right? And that's exactly what they did. And they figured out a way to derive Delta 8 THC from the hemp plant, the legal plant. Okay? Now let me ask you something. Is that my freaking fault that the DEA did that? Because if somebody's really looking for a finger to point at somebody, they need to point it back to the year 2018 when the freaking DEA decided to deschedule the hemp plant because they knew what was going to come from it. They knew what was going to happen. I mean, give me a freaking break. But you see it right here. Delta 8 THC has serious health risks. Okay, and this is all over this search that I did. Safety concerns have been raised about the intoxicating potency of these substances as well as about the chemicals used to manufacture them. Okay, so now it looks like maybe they're starting to ban this shit. Like I said, I even said it in a few of my videos. I said either change your outdated rule and update it, or just get rid of the shit. Well, here you go. Why is Delta 8 getting banned? And the crazy thing about it is you've got more articles right here where they're saying Delta 8 and Delta 9, like, what's the difference? And I mean, it says Delta 9 it's from the actual illegal marijuana buds, I guess, and Delta 8 is derived from hemp. It's in bold right there. It was part of my search, but it's in bold. THC 8 derived from hemp, the legal plant, the legal stuff, the stuff that's on the stuff that's legal. They're selling it in the store. We're paying retail tax for it. I mean, I'm not. I did one time. I had one transaction, and that's all it took to freaking ruin my career. Okay. And this is why it's so freaking stupid. See, I keep wanting to use the word loophole and point out this right here. Out of all the words on this page right here, on this application, this word sticks out like a sore freaking thumb. You know why? You know why? Now, I could get into a whole bunch of conspiracy theories and everything and talk about how some people think that, you know, the FBI, the DEA, they're responsible for the cartels and they're actually bringing illegal narcotics into our country from places like Cuba and South America and all that stuff. But I'm not going to... Whatever, that's not the point. We can't prove anything, or I can't prove anything to you about that. But I can prove something, and I just freaking did prove to you that the federal government is responsible for not the actual marijuana, supposedly, but look at the derivatives. I just showed it to you. I just showed you that Agricultural Act of 2018. Technically, they're the ones that are responsible for these derivatives. So they need to add an extra sentence to this. If they're going to be so specific, they're almost a little bit too specific because, like I was saying, I don't even know if I apply to answer yes to this question. Like, I don't even know. It says yes right now. I'm still trying to figure it out. But what they need to do is add a sentence that says formulations of an amphetamine or derivatives of narcotic drugs. You don't want to add a whole sentence, fine. Put in parentheses right here before, while you were on duty driving a motor carrier, you need to put in parentheses right here, derivatives of narcotic drugs, parentheses, that we are responsible for the making of, close parenthesis, while you were on duty driving a motor carrier. And guys, again, like I said in the past, the reason why they're not doing anything about this is because they're profiting from it, and because they've created an entire industry based on drivers that fail drug tests. And maybe that's what their freaking motive was all along, because they knew deep down, they knew that if they technically removed the hemp plant, like I just showed you, then they knew that chemists were going to get their hands on it. They were going to start performing experiments. They were going to start coming up with all these synthetic freaking things, and they do. And there's different kinds of these THC supplements, edible products that they're actually making money off of. They're getting the retail tax from it, okay? So this whole argument that I had, literally, I went on for weeks and weeks arguing with these people about freaking THC and is it legal or is it not legal? Well, we just got our answer. No, in the form of straight up marijuana, no, it's not legal on a federal level. But guess what? All these products that are being sold, I always said in the past, I don't care that it's not legal on a federal level, it's legal on a state level, and it's being sold. Because what I did is I thought, that basically the whole country over the span of time was going to turn into freaking California or Colorado, and they were just going to eventually legalize marijuana. But you see the difference now. You see the difference. They're making this stuff from legal substances, and they're trying to turn it into, or derive it into, an illegal substance. And they're getting away with it, and they're selling it in the stores. Okay? Now, as a truck driver, would I go up into a trap neighborhood? Would I freaking buy an illegal substance? No. But if there's something being sold in my local store that's legal, that has no warning on it, for a truck driver, yeah, I might be feeling blue one day. I might be feeling a little down and say, what the hell? You know what? I did it when I was a teenager. I guess I'll try it. And that's exactly what I did. But my point is, it should have never been in the damn store to begin with. And I don't want to hear no double standard about how I'm supposed to be a professional. Let me show you something else. I found this too. Trucking industry group opposes federal effort to reclassify marijuana. Federal action aimed at easing restrictions on marijuana under the Controlled Substances Act may have considerable negative consequences for highway safety and safety-sensitive industries, the American Trucking Association claims. Dan Horvath, Senior Vice President of Regulatory Affairs and Safety Policy at ATA, sent a letter on May 15th to the Departments of Justice, Health and Human Services, and Transportation. I don't know how old this article is. Okay, it's from June last year. Okay. The correspondence preceded a May 21st notice of proposed rulemaking from DOJ and Drug Enforcement Administration seeking comment on rescheduling marijuana to a Schedule III controlled substance from Schedule I. That's a big-ass jump. Although such a move wouldn't legalize marijuana at the federal level, it would change its classification to a drug with lower degree of abuse potential and a moderate to low level of physical dependence, the notice states. Cannabis has long been a Schedule I substance prohibited under federal law, categorized with drugs including heroin, LSD, ecstasy, and peyote. Because the federal government tests safety-sensitive workers for only Schedule 1 or 2 controlled substances, ATA is concerned that without additional action, deregulation or rescheduling of marijuana would have the likely consequence of precluding testing for all professional drivers and transportation workers as part of the DOT testing program. If the trucking and broader transportation industry's ability to conduct drug testing is restricted, the risk of impaired drivers operating on our nation's roadways undetected would increase, endangering all who share the road. Okay. Let me go ahead and finish it. As of March, marijuana represented nearly 60% of positive employer drug tests of regulated truck drivers reported on the FMCSA Drug and Alcohol Clearinghouse. The letter notes the proposal postdates President Biden's October 22nd request to the Attorney General and HHS to review expeditiously how marijuana is scheduled under federal law. DOJ and DEA say that if marijuana is transferred into Schedule 3, the manufacturer, distribution, dispensing, and possession of marijuana would remain subject to the applicable criminal prohibitions of the CSA. Any drugs containing a substance within the CSA's definition of marijuana would also remain subject to the applicable prohibitions of the Federal Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act. Okay, there's some comments down below this, but I just want to go back to something real quick. If the trucking and broader transportation industry's ability to conduct drug testing is restricted, the risk of impaired drivers operating on our nation's roadways undetected would increase, endangering all who share the road. Now, that may be true. But let me tell you something. It's not a professional driver under the influence of this stuff that scares me. You know who it is that scares me under the influence of this stuff? The rest of the motoring public. And guess what? They're already freaking doing it. And I even mentioned it in my previous video. There's nowhere in Atlanta that you can go to. Nowhere. That it doesn't reek of marijuana. It's everywhere. It's a freaking epidemic. It's all over the freaking place. And guess what? It's affecting the safety of the roadway. So these people, they're already not professionals. They've already got cell phones in their hands. But guess what? Now they're taking this legal shit that actually our federal government is responsible for. And I just showed you how they're responsible for it. So if a truck driver does it, oh my God, is a truck driver taking that? No, that driver is a professional. Do they have a higher risk with what they're moving down the road? Sure. But that's why they're a professional. What's my point? No, not that there should be truck drivers out there taking THC and driving. No. Here's what I've been screaming the whole time. If the transportation industry's ability to conduct drug testing is restricted? Are you freaking kidding me? Come on. We're all smarter than that. If you change the method of your testing, is alcohol a legal substance? Yes. Do they do a urine analysis for alcohol? Do they do a hair follicle test to try to detect alcohol? No. Why? Because that would be stupid, right? I don't know of any other analogy to use, but that's basically like trying to play putt-putt with a freaking sledgehammer. You see what I'm saying? There's nothing sensitive about it at all. There might be some situations where they'll use a urine analysis test, and I know they do blood analysis tests to detect alcohol. But what's the first thing that officer is going to whip out of his pocket? A freaking breathalyzer? So why the hell can't they do the same thing for legal TH? And it's still in the damn store. I just saw it today. They haven't got it out of the damn store yet. This article, the one that I read earlier, is from last year. They haven't gotten it out of the store yet. It's still there. I could go buy it right now if I wanted to. I don't ever want to take the shit again in my entire freaking life because it ruined my life. Okay? And the circumstances in which it ruined my life, I think, are absolute bullshit. And I'm calling it right here. So, by no means would they be restricting their ability to do drug tests. No, they would just be using a more sensitive method to do it. So just like they use the breathalyzer test to test if there's any trace of alcohol in a driver's system, they can use a salival test to see if there's THC in a driver's system. It's no different. It's no different. No, and you can't sit here and tell me that oh, even if you're not under the influence technically of THC, it can still affect you days, weeks, months after you take it. Well, guess what? So can alcohol. Does that mean we're gonna go back to, the prohibition days? I mean, if we're gonna be this nitpicky about all this shit, then that's what we need to do. We need to get rid of alcohol too. Let's get rid of all of it. I'll be all right with that. I'll live without it. I think we have a better, cleaner, happier world without any of the shit, honestly. I mean, we might actually figure out what we're actually here for if we get rid of all the shit, but I don't think that's going to happen. And I'm questioning. I don't think that they're going to get rid of this Delta 8 shit at this point. If they do, they're going to have a big fight over it. And here's my thing. We have a different president in office now that I'm not for or against. I'm kind of neutral. I really don't give a shit about politics or any of it. I don't give a shit about Joe Biden or Donald Trump. I don't give a shit about any of it. I don't, because I know it's not the real answer. Okay? But this is a problem. This is really saying something. 60% of positive employer drug tests of regulated truck drivers. Marijuana. And it just says marijuana. So they can't even distinguish, first of all, they can't distinguish if this driver is actually smoking illegal weed, Mary Jane, from the illegal plant, or if they're buying something legal from a freaking store that they paid retail tax for. And they don't care. And they're not even, they because of their test. Because of their decision. So they don't know the difference. Not only do they not know the freaking difference between whether the driver's actually taking something that's a class 1 narcotic or something that you can go down the street and buy at any freaking store. So they don't even know that's a big freaking deal, you guys. Think about that. Think about how many truck drivers have failed drug tests. Most of them probably because they bought something legal from a freaking store. Again, why are they not doing anything about it? Because they're making money from a failed drug test. Now, I don't even know if I'm going to be able to find it, but there's one more thing I want to show you if I can actually find it. It makes me sick right here. Although it's not federally regulated due to its chemical makeup, Delta 8 use can still result in a positive drug test, especially under DOT regulations and its strict protocols. So the irony that I talked about before between federal regulations and state regulations. This goes even deeper than that, guys. This isn't just federal and a dispute between federal and state shit. This is a dispute between federal and federal shit. Okay? Because you got the freaking DEA declassifying something and a product getting turned out of that from a declassified plant. The DEA, a federal administration, okay, declassifying something. And then the FMCSA saying, oh, driver, so you bought something that the DEA said is okay to buy. You bought something that the freaking DEA is responsible for and took it and failed our drug test. Do you guys not see the irony in this shit and how sickening this is? Well, too bad, driver. We're gonna have to pull you off the road. We're gonna need you to enter the SAP program now because of something that we're responsible for. Kiss my ass. And I'm just showing it to you guys. 75% of CDL drivers who failed a drug test chose to leave the trucking industry rather than enrolling in the DOT SAP Return to Duty program. You know why? Because it's bullshit. It's all bullshit. Just like most of the other things involved with the transportation industry, it's all bullshit. It really is, guys, and I'm exposing it right here if there's anybody actually listening to me. So here's another thing that I want to point out in the comments section. This is going back to the okay. If you go down to the comment section, you got people basically saying the same thing that I'm saying in different words. I'm a truck driver and I smoke pot. What's the difference between drinking and going to work hungover or smoking a joint and 3 or 4 days later being completely sober? And it doesn't even take 3 or 4 days. He just doesn't want to be honest, does he? What a truck driver does on his day off should be his or her business. Amen, brother. Preach it. Don't endanger the lives of my friends and family by rescheduling marijuana. Don't ruin young lives. It's way past time to remove cannabis from its current Schedule I status. The trucking industry needs to adopt impairment testing as an alternative to drug testing. That's exactly what I'm saying. The long-term effects of THC remaining in the body are indisputable. Chronic users use more amounts of it. We should never allow drivers to have it in their system operating 80,000-pound metal bullets on our roadways. This is a liability nightmare for trucking companies and insurers. Yeah, it's really all about these assholes right here. It's all about them. They run the frickin' world. Professional drivers just say no. Companies should retain the absolute right to... You know who wrote this? Somebody that doesn't drive a damn truck that needs to shut their frickin' mouth. People spreading fear in the comments below are going by old, outdated science. Weed in your system doesn't make you drive bad. Laugh out loud. The effects wear off in hours. Now, I don't know about that either. I don't know that any of these comments are 100% true. I know that this one right here is not from a truck driver. And I know that this guy right here didn't wait 3 or 4 days to go back to work. What about this last guy? I smoked marijuana for 18 years while driving Class A commercial vehicles. This was while I was an owner-operator driving local. I would sometimes smoke when I got home from work while relaxing and on the weekends. The marijuana never affected me when I was working. I was always sober at work, of course. Those 18 years, I had not a single accident of any kind driving a CMV. I have 28 years of safe, accident-free driving, 10 of which is as a company driver, which I do not smoke any marijuana due to drug test. Even though recreational use of marijuana is legal in my state, I don't think it's fair nor necessary to bar drivers from partaking in marijuana use on their day off away from work. It is also bad for the industry. Many good drivers get into the industry and leave after they fail a drug test, or many good drivers avoid the industry altogether due to the overly strict marijuana rules. If a driver fails a drug tear, they have to go see a substance abuse professional for a long period of time and get treated like a heroin addict. Yeah, that's true. That's true. I never told you guys this, but when my SAP counselor evaluated me, and I had to call him on a Zoom meeting, which cost me like $400 freaking dollars to talk to this guy for less than 30 minutes. It was back when I had the long hair, and the first thing he did is he like when I came on screen, he was like, "Oh my God," like, because I had long hair and I had a beard, because I'm a truck driver, okay? Not working in a freaking office like this guy is, that's taking all my freaking money. So he was shocked and he was a little apprehensive at first. You know what? Then he found out I've been married for 12 freaking years. I'm a homeowner. I have really good credit. My kids are healthy and they're happy and they love me and I love them. He started figuring out, oh, this guy's not so bad. Now, he just went to the store and he bought something legal that the freaking government is responsible for making legal. And he took it on his day off. And then he found out the government was actually setting him up to have to pay $1,000 if he wants to keep being a truck driver. And oh, by the way, unfortunately, he lost his freaking job, the best job he ever freaking had, that he worked his ass off for 7 years to get. So, I'm not really seeing anything that stands out that much about any of these comments, except for, the stringent marijuana rules have done more harm than anything. There needs to be better drug tests that can better detect harder drugs like cocaine, heroin, etc., and utilize tests that can detect impairment. Right. This is what it needs to be about. It doesn't need to be about what you did over the weekend when you were off duty. It needs to be about what is going on right now. At the moment, if you're behind the wheel, absolutely, I agree. You need to be 100% sober, 100% alert. But what you did over the weekend when you weren't in that truck, hey, if it's something legal that you bought from a freaking store, what does that say? The most dangerous and harmful thing about marijuana is marijuana laws. Marijuana laws have destroyed more lives than marijuana can or ever will. Oh my God, that's a good point there, buddy. And so, yeah, guys, I just going back to my application because that's where it all started, right? Now, if I really want to answer honestly, I can't really say yes, but I can't really say no. I mean, you see, they got me over a flaming pit here for something that happened one time that actually they set up for me. I didn't buy anything illegal. I didn't drive under the influence of anything. But no, I did get punished for breaking a rule, even though I didn't commit any crimes. I got convicted. I had to pay a fine. I mean, that's what I'd call it. It was a fine. You can call it a program if you want to, but it was really just lining their freaking fat pockets and me losing my job over it. A job that monitored me with AI, which I actually, they, even with their AI camera, they never suspected a damn thing because I never gave them any issues and I never crossed any lines and I never put anybody in danger. Ever. You know why? Because I never did it when I was doing my freaking job, and that's the difference. And I have enough sense and I have enough respect to know better than to do any stupid shit like that. And I never would have done that. Ever. It's already stressful enough driving a truck. Why the hell would I want to try to do it high? And see, that doesn't mean anything to them. And that's what's sickening about it. Now, guys, I can't leave you without mentioning that a lot of these applications that you fill out, they are actually doing employment verification. And if you're a truck driver, you know that you have to report the last 10 years of your driving history with every single company that you work for. The clearinghouse standard is that once you have a violation, even after you finish the SAP program, it will remain on your record for 5 years, right? Well, some of these companies, when they go back over the 10-year history and they do your employment verification with each company, they look up your records and they will see if, even if you are 9 years out from failing a drug test, if they see that you were terminated from a specific company, they do a little bit of, litigation to find out why that happened, and they see that it's because you were terminated for failing a drug test. Guess what? You're no longer capable to be employed by said company. All right? Now, one of my biggest points, and I'm sorry that it took me 45 minutes to get to this point, is that again, looking at this, I want to point out the big thing right here where I'm actually seeing a flaw in this. Up there in the question part of number 5, where it says, any of the following offenses committed during on duty time. And then it gives the different bullets for each offense. Okay, like I said before, the only offense that applies for me is the refusal to undergo drug and alcohol testing as required by any jurisdiction for the enforcement of Federal Motor Carrier Safety Act regulations. Now, here's a flaw. That flaw is that I was not on duty when I went to go take that drug test. And I'm pretty sure that if I talk to an attorney, not that I can afford to do that, but if I were to talk to an attorney about this, it says committed during on-duty time up there. And I'm pretty sure that's a big part of each one of those listed regulations. The 391.15 and the 395.2. Now, I'm pretty sure that for that to qualify as on-duty time, it may be because you were involved in some kind of an accident. Therefore, you're actually out there, you're doing your job, you're driving, and you're involved in an accident. And a jurisdiction requires you to take an immediate drug test to find out if you have anything in your system because of an accident. I think that's a qualification right there. But if the DOT just happens to say, okay, we're going to audit this driver randomly because we want to know what their piss is looking like, and they decide that they want to pull you off the road while you're driving, you get a call from your company and they say, you got to come in, you got to go take this drug test. That might be another thing that qualifies it. But guys, I wasn't even on duty whenever I went to go take this drug test. So is that a yes or a no? Okay. And the last thing I want to point out is in the other section where I showed you at that bullet point where it says transportation, possession, or unlawful use of a Schedule 1 identified controlled substance. Amphetamines, narcotic drugs, formulations of an amphetamine, or derivatives of narcotic drugs while you were on duty driving for a motor carrier. Now that is a trick question, because like I said before, whenever I took this Delta 8 THC derivative of CBD, I was not on duty. I was off duty. So wouldn't that technically just completely eliminate this question for me? Does that mean that I can say no? Because whenever I took it, I wasn't on duty. But guess what? I'll never be able to prove that. Why? Because they have set you up for failure before you even get started. Because they're lacking those impairment testing procedures. Like I said before, that salival test, anything like that. Now, had they implemented some kind of impairment test, and I went to go take it that day that I refused to submit that urine analysis. If they would have implemented an impairment test for the detection of THC, I'm pretty sure that things would have panned out very differently, because it had been nearly a week since I had used the legal THC. I was literally at the end of my work week. It was my last day, and like I said, I told you guys before, I went and I took an over-the-counter drug test and failed it. That's why I knew I would fail their urine analysis test. But if they had used a salival test on me, I'm 99.99999% positive that I would have passed the test. It would have been a negative result for THC, and I would still have my freaking job right now. But see, that question right there, this is my real point. That question right there, that's actually not fair. That's not a fair question. Because they're asking you, have you done these things while on duty? But they're not giving you a chance to prove that you did it while you were off duty. Do you see that? Do you see how they just set you up for failure? They don't even give you a chance. That's ruthless. As much as we sacrifice, as hard as we work, as much shit that we put up with as truck drivers, this is just something else that we have to put up with. And it's getting real old. So how do I answer this question? If I answer no, they're going to be like, oh, you're a freaking liar. Get the hell out of here. If I answer yes, they're going to be like, oh, our insurance isn't going to cover you. Get the hell out of here. So what does it matter? You know, 75% of drivers refuse to do the SAP program because they didn't want to waste their freaking time. I mean, I kind of see where they're coming from at this point. I'm like almost 2 years into it. I've been done with it for almost the whole freaking year, and I still can't even get a decent damn job over one refused drug test. After 7 years of clean piss, I refused to piss one time, and I lose everything. After working my ass off. My fault, right? Well, it's easy to point the finger and say, you know what, that was your choice, that's your fault. You knew there would be consequences, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I knew that. But here's my question. Where the hell is the consequence for this shit that I just showed you? I'll leave you with that. All right, thanks for watching. See you next time.